Okay. Well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about my podcast before we get into the conversation. This podcast is for my senior workshop, and it is to highlight the benefits of using marijuana and training because there's such a stigma against it, and I think that that needs to be addressed because there are more benefits. So, my first question to you, Will Boston, is let me just hear your experiences with candidates in the first place.
I'd say only good things. Uh, I haven't let it guide me in the wrong direction in any form. I'd say there's a stigma behind like people who smoke marijuana being lazy and stuff like that. But I don't know. I think most of the people I know who smoke marijuana are pretty active in their life and are motivated by either working or school or stuff like that. But they use marijuana as a way to relax and kind of reflect on, what they do. After playing tennis, let's say, you know, you have a bad day on the court, you go home, you medicate and you sit down, you reflect, you're like, damn, I was why did I act like that on the court today? Like all I did was play badly. Like, what am I, a fucking joke or something like that? And then, you think about it like that, and then you go in the next day to practice and you're focused and motivated to be better than what you were yesterday.
Mm. So would you say that it's useful to reflect on your actions in daily life and in tennis?
I'd say that. I'd say also other things, there are health benefits from it. It can decrease stress, anxiety. There are some strains that help decrease inflammation, stuff like that. Um, so there are a lot of different benefits from the cannabinoids that a lot of people don't recognize, and I think that's because there's such a stigma behind marijuana. But I mean, the research people are doing nowadays is that even if it's like, let's say you don't want to ingest marijuana, but you know, my girlfriend's my girlfriend's dad, we were in Colorado skiing, and he just went to the dispensary and he just got, a rub
Mm.
and the like a nice cream, like a Tiger Balm
Mhm.
type of thing, and the data shows that there has to be trace amounts of THC in the rub to provide medical benefits. So there has to be THC and CBD interacting with each other.
Mhm.
So I think all these CBD rubs that people, trust, CBD can help some people, but if you have like severe arthritis or injuries like that, then THC would help that.
Mhm. So would you say that, or what would you say the stigma comes from that
I
surrounds
mean,
it?
it's just the history behind marijuana.
Mhm.
It's just I was doing I was doing some research on it, and I think it was in the 80s, or like I think it was like Reagan or Nixon. I forget specifically which president who like cracked down on the drug scene, but one of them. And I was reading this California law where they it was like a three-strike rule for everything else, but if it was marijuana related, you were instantly going to jail. So I think there's a lot of stigma because of placing fear in people's eyes with,
Mhm.
policies. Um, but I think that people, are starting to realize that there can be benefits.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, would you say that in the next, upcoming years, more states will start to legalize it?
I don't know that, to be honest. I haven't, I mean, I only know from this year Arizona, New Jersey, I don't know. I think it was like Idaho or Montana. I don't know. It was one of those states that also legalized it, but I don't know if it's on the ballot for any other states.
So most critics see it as, performance enhancing drug. So you talked about how you used it to reflect when you had a bad day on the court. So would you say that you also advocated for the use of, or advocate for the use of cannabis in training in general?
I think to a certain point, you know, it's like you can't be overly medicated and then
Right.
go into a training room and hurt yourself. You have to know what you're doing. You can't just go in and do something stupid. So I think that's something that may go wrong, but or like throw someone's balance off or something like that. But other than that, whenever I've trained with it, oh sorry, I was playing music earlier. Mac Miller, shout out Mac Miller. All right. But whenever I've used it, it's funny because I go into the gym after medicating, and then I go in and I really feel a difference in how I can feel my muscles contract. I can really pinpoint which muscles I'm using in
Mhm.
each exercise, which I think it allows me to really isolate those muscles for specific exercises, which is good. Um, I think when playing tennis, um, medicating at first before playing tennis, you kind of have to get used to it because, you know, it's a different, you're experiencing the ball at a different rate because your timing is off. So you kind of have to adjust. But once you get into it, I found that it's like meditative. Like I just try to, whenever I medicate and then play tennis, I just try to lock it in, don't miss, and just fucking don't miss. And it gets to a point where it's like meditative, and I'm just out there enjoying my time, working very hard on the tennis court.
So you would say it helps you kind of, just go with the flow and release all your, worries and focuses, and you're just focusing on enjoying the actual game.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But, you know, there's some people who I've played with who have medicated before, and it they it wasn't the same for them. They couldn't really lock it in. I mean, given this individual couldn't really lock it in sober, let's say,
Mhm.
but it was pretty noticeable after the medicating.
You mentioned that you use it when you lift. I find that interesting. I've never heard of that before. Do you think that actually you're able to like get a different perspective and that's useful for you?
100%. So at my work, I'm talking to my boss about this, and I work for a cannabis company. I'll just say that.
Mhm.
And I brought up the idea to her about me exercising and feeling a difference in isolating, muscles and contracting the muscles and isolating them and just
Mhm.
really feeling what I'm doing in my body. And she she agrees with me that there's potential for something there, but there just isn't enough there aren't enough studies out there because it's a Schedule 1 drug, you know,
Yeah. Hmm.
which is a shame because we could isolate cannabinoids in marijuana and extract them, and people can, put it in a little vape and you're smoking um, limonene, which I can't remember. Let me.
So in your daily life, we talked about your athletic, side of things. How would you say that the consumption of marijuana affects your daily life, like how you go about your life?
It's something you don't. Something you don't do before doing important things.
Right, right.
Like I'm not gonna do it going to work.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna, do it and go to class. That's just being an irresponsible individual. I think. Some people don't have as much self control, so it's hard. But I think there's a stigma behind it because there are those lazy individuals who do consume marijuana.
How do you consume it yourself?
Um, in like what way? How?
Or how do you partake in the act?
Like how do I smoke it?
Yeah, like do you smoke? Do you use edibles?
I like lotions. Those are nice for after exercising, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, I smoke flower. I do that. That's nice after a long day of work before dinner, something like that.
Mhm.
And then I'd say before exercising, it depends. It depends which, like, if I'm doing something like I'm exercising, if I'm lifting weights, I'd probably say I'd, you know, smoke. But if I was going out to play some tennis, I
Mhm.
might take a little bit of an edible. It depends.
Oh, I have another question for you. When did you start smoking? Like at what age?
Senior year of high school.
Okay. So would you say that your views from when you first started to now have changed on the topic? I mean, now you're working at a cannabis company, so I feel like they would a little bit.
I think I just got more responsible with it. It's
Mhm.
like I I'm a medical patient too.
Okay.
I have a medical card. So it's really nice to really go from kind of being, when you were younger, you didn't really care
Hmm.
what you were putting into your body, but now I really, you can tell the difference in the different qualities of weed and what you're putting into your body and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so limonene is the terpene that is recognizable, sorry, for its zesty citrus fragrance,
Okay.
primarily in lemon.
Hmm.
Also found in orange, lime, and grapefruit. But it's been explored for its many and varied potential medical uses, including its anti-inflammatory, anti-anxiety, antibacterial, and anti-cancer qualities.
Wow.
So, this is what's good about educating yourself about what you should be putting into your body,
Right.
because you can find out what's right for whatever condition you may have
Mhm.
and then medicate for it.
So let's talk about more of the sports side of things. I don't know if you can, put your 2 cents in on this, but do you think the sports industry, is potentially taking a turn because of the increasing popularity of marijuana?
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's kind of it depends on the administration, I think. I think it depends on a lot of policy with the health policy of the United States where that goes. I mean, recently they just fired people because they testified that they had consumed cannabis from the White House. They fired some interns.
Really? Wow.
So I think what was and still might be going in a positive direction, there could be some slowdown with federal policy regarding marijuana. But states, they can, they can decide whether or not they want to legalize it.
Hmm. Interesting. It's obvious. It's not obvious, but I mean, obviously, a lot of athletes do indulge in cannabis. So I wouldn't be surprised if, the World Anti-Doping Agency took it off their banned substance list.
I think, I agree. I, I don't know if I answered the last question, but I agree that like most sports will soon, allow the use of cannabis.
Hmm. I agree. I mean, I would hope so. It definitely has more benefits than the only thing it really affects. I mean, I haven't done much research on it, but from what I know, it just really affects your lungs. And, for some athletes, that's a big part of their sport.
It's weird because people say that, but then you got athletes like David Ferrer.
Mm.
David Ferrer smokes a pack of cigarettes every day. And he's top 10 in the world for how many years?
That's true.
Competing against Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer.
Mm-hmm.
This man is a chain smoker, but yet he can still compete with the best of the best.
Mm.
So I think I don't even know. Yeah. I think that athletes are athletes. They've trained enough to where they can consume cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
They're at a point, I mean, Michael Phelps was consuming cannabis like around the Beijing Olympics, I remember. He was like caught with a bong or something. And that man probably has the biggest lungs out of any human being in the world. Shout out Michael Phelps.
Okay, my next question for you is can you recall, a time in your career where cannabis helped you?
Cannabis helped me. I mean, I'm just a thinker and I just use it to reflect, and I think it just allows me to reflect and think about what I want to do, and I think it could have helped me guide me in the direction that I am where I am right now, and I'm grateful for where I am right now. So who knows what could have happened if I wasn't consuming cannabis, I guess you could say that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
What is something that you would say to, future athletes who are thinking about indulging in cannabis?
Be responsible. Yeah. Just understand what you're putting into your body and understand the effects of it and how you want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
But mainly just be responsible.
Okay. I think that's all I have for you. Thank you for talking with me.
Of course.
Awesome.